Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sports Speak. My name is Tim Moore as we welcome you to another Monday afternoon edition of Sports Speak. Now, today, as you can tell, Eddie Kalegi not alongside with us here for Sports Speak as he's at the Bruce Beck Sports Broadcasting Camp, and I hope he's having a wonderful time. Here in this Monday edition, it's going to be just me. However, we have a planned special guest perhaps coming up on Thursday. More information to come on that. But overall, it's a privilege to be here, and I'm really excited to get back into the Sports Speak action here in this Monday afternoon. Now, today we're going to be talking about a couple of different sports. Overall, Eddie and I usually talk about a variety, especially Major League Baseball, the NBA, NASCAR, and sorts. However, I am going to cover a sport that a bunch of our listeners and followers do listen to and watch, but we haven't really talked much about, and that's the opposite end of NASCAR, in which it's the console version of the eNASCAR Heat Pro League. So overall, the eNASCAR Heat Pro League season is slowly starting to wind down. Now, when you look at it, we're in the middle of segment 3. We're going into the second race on Wednesday, and we've already seen 4 drivers clinched into both the Xbox and PS4 championship, 2 on each side, that is, respectively. On the Xbox side, we've seen Justin Brooks, Daniel Buttafuoco clinch their way into the championship, while Brandon Gritton and also Maxwell Castro on the PS4 side have clinched their way in. Now, the way the schedule is broken down, for those that don't know or don't follow the Pro League, the schedule was broken down into 3 segments overall in the regular season. Each segment has 4 races in length, with the exception of segment 4, which you're like, well, I mentioned 3 segments. Well, segment 4 is a wild card race, which will also add 2 more drivers into the championship. Now, with that being said, there are also a couple complex rules, which we'll talk about in a little bit, of how a driver may not be clinched in a segment. But that's a different story, or that's a different conversation we'll have in a little bit. But overall now, we've seen 4 drivers in. 8 drivers overall, to my understanding, will race for the championship. But I do want to focus towards the end of this segment because I'm really excited to see what happens here. Last week, we saw Matthew Selby, along with Brandon Gritton for Stewart-Haas Esports, clinch their way, or I shouldn't say clinch their way, sweep their way through Homestead. And Matthew Selby, early on, he looks to be very strong going through this segment, but there's a lot of guys that are relatively pretty much front runners trying to catch him. And for the most part, the other thing is, too, is that you have Justin Brooks, you have Daniel Buttafuoco, who are trying to re-win another segment so that they can kind of control their fate a little bit of going into the wild card round. Now, the reason why I mention this is because going back to the point about how you may not be able to win a segment and clinch. Well, if Daniel Buttafuoco, for example, wins both segments, you would just think it would go to the next highest guy in points that would clinch their way in, but that's not exactly the case. You see, season consistency is going to matter. So if Justin Brooks or Daniel Buttafuoco turn around and end up becoming victorious in one of these segments, as an example on the Xbox side, well, you would see Matthew Selby, who right now sits number 1 in the points in segment 4, and let's say that consists where he finishes behind Brooks or Buttafuoco towards the end of the 3rd segment. You would think he'd be the next guy in, but no. Right now, actually, it's Slade who sits in the spot, and of course, I'm referring to Slade Gravett, who would actually have the overall points, of course, assuming he wouldn't win Daytona. He would have the overall consistency in points to race for the championship. So it's a little bit different, is that if you don't win a segment, well, then overall points come to tie in. Now, on the PS4 side, you don't really know who's going to win. You'd like to say Kyle Arnold's going to turn around and this is going to be a segment after he's been essentially, I guess you could say, screwed over the last 2 segments, in which last week at Atlanta, or rather 2 weeks ago at Atlanta, he was winning and he got moved out of the way by Brandon Gritton, who ultimately, went on to win that race and the segment. And the overall, when I say he got moved out of the way, it was a relatively dirty move in which Gritton went under the apron. And overall, back in segment one, you also had him get moved out of the way at Watkins Glen, which caused him to wreck and cost him a couple points. He should have won that race. And ultimately, in terms of the points total, would have went on to win that segment. But on the PS4 side, I would like to think Red's the one that's going to win the segment. But again, I just don't really know because the PS4 side, anyone can win on any given day. And it's high, intense, off the rails racing. And I'm excited to see, and especially when we come to the wild card race, I have no clue. On the Xbox side, we kind of had an idea of who's going to be the front runners. But on the PS4 side, you had Corey Rothgeb, who turned around and won at Talladega the last time they went to a plate track. And when they go back, I mean, sure, he could be a favorite, but guys like Mike Brass or, maybe an underdog, favorite like Chiesa, for example, they want to turn around and try to be a factor. Now, you just don't really know. That's the thing about the NASCAR Pro League. It's a mystery. On the Xbox side now, going back to it, is, you would like to think it's going to be Mr. Track Bar or Lucky Dog, or that would go on to win. But I wouldn't count out CGMX Road or Luis Sater in regards to making a run back there. We didn't have a good Eldora, but these are a couple of big tracks coming up. Auto Club, very draft oriented. How are you going to have your car on the long run? And how is the draft going to be? Is it going to be just like Atlanta is the question? And on the opposite end, you have another track as well, Las Vegas, that will also be coming into the picture towards the end of the segment. And they have a road course, a Road America. Guys like Riley Ogle, for example, benefit of road courses, as well as J-Mac or Jordan McGraw. So this is a segment where you don't really know what's going to happen. You'd like to assume you have an idea. But overall, it's going to be a question. And at Daytona, I would like to think one of these two races, when I get into segment 4 for the wild card race, there's going to be an underrated winner winning in the championship. And that is my prediction for this year. I think either on the Xbox side, you have a Mike Brass or a Brandon Hanna, for example, or rather known as Chiesa, that will go on to win a race after having a struggling season. I'll even put Joe Gornick in the picture as well, and turn around and race for a championship the following week. On the Xbox side, Riley Ogle could be a potential. Sam Morris, Brian Tedeschi. There's a lot of people that could turn around, even Jose Ruiz, that could just be good for one race and race for a championship the following week. And I think that Daytona race is going to be one to watch. And of course, I know it's, again, a race that's about 4 weeks from now, but I'm excited for it. NASCAR Heat 5, by the way, coming out tonight. That's a lot of excitement. Do these pro league drivers convert over there? That I don't know. But one thing I do know is that when it comes down to the wire, these races get intense, and we've seen it time and time again. And I'm going to put out my favorite right now to win the championship. I would say it's between Mr. Track Bar and Lucky Dog on the Xbox side. I think they both have it figured out, but we're also going to get to see a cross-platform for the championship for the first time. So we'll see how these next few weeks play out. But I'd like to say here in segment 3 in particular, you're going to have a good mix on the PS4 side, but on the Xbox side, it's going to be pretty competitive. I'm not quite sure who's going to win, but I would like to think, again, it's going to be Mr. Track Bar or Lucky Dog 385 that go on to win and kind of put a point scenario towards the end of the year. Now, I do want to move forward onto our next topic, and that one being the Major League Baseball. So July 1st came and went. Eddie and I, the last time we talked in Sports Speak, it was a day before summer camp began. Well, now we're starting to see things start to ramp up. But unfortunately, me being a New York Yankees fan, it hasn't been a summer camp in which I have dreamed of. Yesterday, you had Masahiro Tanaka, well, actually, rather 2 days ago, on July 4th, you had Masahiro Tanaka on the mound taking, his reps, pitching to live batting. Giancarlo Stanton, who, might I mind you, actually took an incredible hack at the baseball, hit a line drive right back at Tanaka, and drilled him right off the head. And I will say this, I am thankful that Masahiro Tanaka is okay, because that was a scary, scary shot. And you always think about hitters, having skull fractures, internal bleeding. Anytime you see a ball come off the bat, and Stanton, he was remorseful immediately when that ball off the bat, because he knew what was going to happen. And, he doesn't hit the ball soft. That ball had to be coming off the bat 105 miles an hour plus. But thankfully, Tanaka is walking around now and seems to be okay. He was released from the hospital, and I don't seem to think there is a skull fracture. But the Yankees got a big break, but it was a scary July 4th to open things up. And then to top it, later news in that day, the Yankees now are missing arguably its best offensive weapon from last season, a DJ LeMahieu, as he and both teammate Luis Sessa ended up catching COVID-19. So now I start to worry, because initially only 38 tests by Major League Baseball ultimately came positive for COVID-19 with players coming to summer camp. And it's unfortunate because, when you look at it, yes, that's a very low number of the thousands of players they tested. But at the same time, it's slowly going to start creeping back in the picture. We've seen in the NFL where COVID-19 is becoming a presence, and teams are a little bit nervous for their spring camps and summer camps to prepare for the new season in the summertime. And in baseball right now, you have a lot of players who are opting out, don't want to get risk. For example, Ryan Zimmerman, he opted out of the season. David Price for the Dodgers, he opted out. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more players opting out. You look at it in regards to, is this what you really want to risk? And we're hearing Mike Trout, he may take off for the season. And that could be interesting, because we're talking the best player in baseball taking a year off. That'll be incredible to see the responses of what happens afterwards. But overall, it says a lot. 60 games, that's all they're playing. And obviously, yes, you have a postseason, but 60 games is also a risk that you take when you do play these games. And, you look at the COVID, it's not pretty. You don't want it. And, we're going to start seeing it for sports in particular, because unlike other sports, baseball in particular just hasn't really had its, plan put in place properly. We know this season was rushed, but teams are expected to fly all around the country. And the fact that there's an expectation that COVID isn't going to be spread, to me, is astonishing, simply because of the fact that, again, you look at it, COVID is a threat everywhere you go. And you're going to tell me that players that wouldn't be practicing social distancing because they're with each other every single day over a 70-day span, to say the least, so I apologize that yawn there, over a 70-day span, are going to be expected to travel all over the place, play a bunch of series, and then turn around and be, healthy and safe. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. If you're Major League Baseball, you're risking these players' lives, you're risking their health. And I know the politic aspect right now, and I'm not going to really talk about that, but COVID isn't going away anytime soon. It needs to be maintained and stopped. And you can't ask people to come out here and try to perform their regular lives like COVID doesn't exist. There's going to be a lot of players that are going to catch COVID. There's going to be players that are going to spread COVID to their teammates. And the unfortunate realism is that I think Major League Baseball is going to have an instance where players are going to really, really catch COVID and they're going to spread it to an entire team. And that's when Major League Baseball either stops that team from playing the season or stops the season at whole. And, I applaud the players that are making a stand and saying, hey, I really don't want to play this year. It's not exactly what we want. I don't want to risk my life. I just had a new baby, or, I have an illness. I don't want it. I applaud those players because to me, they're making the smart, responsible decision. I don't think Major League Baseball right now is making a smart, responsible decision. They're trying to please TV companies. They're trying to come out and they're trying to make money, are these owners. And I understand, yes, no money, no baseball, no money, but you can make money in many different ways and you have contracts and other things. These players are opting to sit out and essentially not get paid. That says something. That says, that goes beyond words. That's actions. And I don't think MLB is taking the proper actions. I don't think canceling your minor league season is going to do any help. I don't think players traveling across the country is going to help anything. I think Major League Baseball needs to sit back, realize that this is going to be a threat. And I understand the numbers are low right now, but they're picking back up. The second wave is coming quickly. And it's just not ideal. You're going to put players in risk. You're going to put millions of dollars and maybe even lives at risk. It's not worth it. And I really don't see this Major League Baseball season being a success. And on top of it, you're going to have an asterisk champion. And it's just not right. Now, I do want to flip it to the good side. I did talk about the NASCAR Pro League, but I do want to also talk about NASCAR now, as this will be likely our final topic for the show here on this Monday edition of Sports Speak. And I'll tell you what, for the NASCAR Pro League, again, I mentioned how the races are interesting, but I don't think the NASCAR Pro League could have ever, and I mean ever, turn around and match the amount of excitement we saw for this past weekend at Indianapolis. Now, I'll say excitement in a match term because the NASCAR Pro League has a bunch of excitement, incredible racing. That's not to deny. But in terms of the excitement for what we saw this past weekend, I mean, oh my goodness, the Xfinity race at Indianapolis's road course, first time ever, incredible. One of the best races you will ever, and I mean ever, see. And you have Chase Briscoe going on to win that race in what was a battle between Austin Cindric, AJ Allmendinger, Justin Haley. There was guys nose to nose, bumper to bumper, beating, banging, just trying to win the race. And overall, the race produced. It was promising. And you kind of want to see NASCAR and the Cup cars race the road course. I'll tell you this, for Roger Penske, this was a huge success because from Saturday going to Sunday, I'd much rather watch people kiss the bricks on the Saturday race than the Sunday race. Now, the reason why I say that is for, again, those that didn't watch on Sunday, you didn't really miss anything. This Sunday race was probably the worst Indianapolis race since 2008. And for those that don't know, back in 2008, NASCAR introduced the car Tomorrow in Indianapolis. And overall, the tire wear was terrible. Guys were cutting down tires left and right. And there was an instance where, you had major accidents. And overall, the driver that went on to win the race basically was decided, I believe it was Jimmy Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, but the driver that went on to win the race won simply because of the fact that he was the only one that didn't have tire issues all day long. Well, yesterday we saw tires become the factor yet again, and Indianapolis is a high-speed track. Tires are not expected to be a part of the outcome. Yet, we saw it be the factor. Denny Hamlin, he had arguably the best car all day long. With 7 laps to go, he cuts down a tire at a vicious angle, pounds the wall, car's on fire. Alex Bowman cut down a tire, bounced off the wall at a vicious angle. Luckily, his car didn't catch on fire, but this all really started back when it happened to Eric Jones. And on top of it, they have a pit road accident off of one simple checkup in which a crew member for Ryan Blaney's team got ran over, and I still haven't gotten to see the diagnosis, and I hope he's okay. I'm hoping nothing's broken, but the initial look is that the guy may have broken his leg. And, again, we hope that crew member's okay, but there was a big wreck in pit road, so all guys eliminated. And to me, what's scary about this race in particular is that we saw more cars eliminated at Indianapolis than we saw at Talladega. That should never be a statistic that anyone ever reads in any track. Plate tracks are close racing. They produce big wrecks at high impact and velocity. That's just the nature of restrictor plate racing. But Indianapolis is long. It's spread out. Sure, it's fast. But the reason why cars were eliminated from the race at Indianapolis was because you had guys cutting down tires left and right. You had guys, spinning. Even another one, too, that I just remembered as well, the 48, Justin Allgaier, after getting involved in the pit road incident, he cuts down a tire. And in particular, it was right front tires that went down. So we saw Saturday be an incredibly exciting race. Sunday, for the record, I don't want to dismantle it and say, oh, this was the worst race ever, because early on in the race, it was actually exciting. You saw a lot of guys that necessarily aren't fast every week be up there towards the front. Bubba Wallace, Matt DiBenedetto, even Alex Bowman. Obviously, I know he's a typical front runner, but he was up there throughout the race. You had, Kevin Harvick, who's always up there, come show some speed. Chase Elliott was out in front. William Byron won a stage and then had a tire issue. So, again, the way I look at it is that the racing was mixed. It was spread out. It was fun. But tires, Goodyear, you have to figure something out. Otherwise, these guys need to stop going to the Brickyard. Race the road course. Just race it. Because it's not a fun race to watch. And on top of it, what's getting more frustrating each week is NASCAR with these start times. It seems like rain and thunderstorms have been in the picture every single week now for the last 2 months. Something has to be addressed. Earlier start times. Indianapolis doesn't have lights. These guys were racing into the sunset for yet another week. At Pocono, they raced into the sunset. Here again in Indiana, obviously having 1 hour less time here compared to the East Coast. So they started, I believe, about 3 o'clock. That is in Central Time, but they raced into the sunset because all the yellows created a very long race. Indianapolis is also a 50-plus second track. So I just don't know. If you're NASCAR, you start thinking about, because obviously I know you made the schedule for last season. You made changes to these cars to make racing more competitive. But these cars can't handle the abrasive surface that is Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So to me, I think the road course is the best option. These guys would love to race the road course too, especially after watching Xfinity go there. I would say you make that a July 4th race, people are going to have a fun time. And also, that this race kind of undermined the history that went on this week too. You had IndyCar, who's racing the road course as well. in the same garage at the same time as NASCAR. That's something that is remarkable and incredible. But it goes undermined simply because of the fact that the Cup race was absolutely terrible yesterday on Sunday. So I just don't know if you're NASCAR if you go back there. Now, fast forwarding towards the season, yesterday saw Kevin Harvick pick up the victory. Matt Kenseth, he got a great result. He finished second. And now we're starting to slowly see the chase come back into the picture. The season is starting to wind down. And we're starting to see a lot of good, consistent drivers. I'm going to make my prediction now on who I think the final four are going to be come playoff time. Now, this year, we've seen one driver in particular that hasn't won a race, but he's been always consistent. My first pick goes to Kyle Busch. I think Kyle Busch is going to be there. He's basically a fixture in the NASCAR playoff system, and he's been consistent. I know no practice has hurt him, but it's created some very exciting races, with the exception of really yesterday's race. And, he's going to turn around and I think maybe win another race or two this season and turn around and have a great chase. I think you see him in the final four. However, in terms of permanent fixtures, I think this year there's a couple of guys you won't see that we typically see. But one guy, yet again, we will see is Kevin Harvick. He's been there every year. He's been consistent, and he's good. I think you'll see Kevin Harvick in the Final Four. I think he'll win a couple of playoff races and be good. And I'll tell you what, Kevin Harvick plus ISM for a championship race, oh boy, does that scare me. But now you flip it around as well. Here's where we start to see two new drivers pop in. And I'm actually going to go twice from the Hendrick stable, as weird as that sounds. Chase Elliott. I think this is Chase's year for a championship. He's looked good every week. You think about all the chances Chase has had to win, and he could have had 3, 4, 5 wins already. He's had some bad luck, but Chase will find a way to turn it around. To me, and I mentioned it a couple of podcasts ago to Eddie, this feels like a Hendrick season. And I would not be surprised to see Chase Elliott not just in the Final Four for the first time in his career, but overall walking away with his first NASCAR Cup Series championship here in the 2020 season. And then I'm going to make a bold prediction, not because I'm a fan of him, but I really think he'll turn around come the chase, and that's Alex Bowman. Bowman's been fast to open up the year. He's had a lot of speed everywhere he goes. Top 10 every week. The Hendrick stable's been producing, but he's had bad luck. And overall, it hasn't helped him. Yesterday, he cut down the tire at Indianapolis. Pocono, he was running up top 10, and he had an issue going for him. So overall, I would like to think that, Bowman's going to turn it around. The playoff system is perfect for him in terms of the races. And you bring him to a home track of ISM in which he can race the championship for. And you think back when he was subbing for Dale Jr., the year and the race he had there. And I know he hasn't been good. He hasn't been good at ISM since then. But, oh, man, would it be bittersweet for the homeboy to come around to Arizona and win at Phoenix. I mean, to me, that would be absolutely incredible. So I'm excited to see what happens in the playoffs, but I'm also not going to count out a bunch of underdogs. Eric Almirola is starting to put his good season back together. You have even Martin Truex Jr., who I didn't mention. I don't think you see him this year, but maybe he'll find his rhythm back and win a bunch of races. Denny Hamlin, you notice I didn't mention. Now, one reason why I hadn't mentioned Denny Hamlin is simply because in his career, as I also mentioned in another podcast, he tends to not be able to get it done when the races matter. I think that tends to continue again. I know Hamlin's done a great job. He should have won Indianapolis yesterday, but overall, when it comes to the chase time, this seems not to be the year for the Gibbs cars. Eric Jones hasn't done well. Truex has had an average year. It's underwhelming compared to his past years. Denny Hamlin's racing incredible. since winning the Daytona 500 to start this year. And Kyle Busch is having an underwhelming year because he hasn't won races, although he is racking up the top fives. But I think this year we only see one Gibbs car, and that would be Kyle Busch. But overall, that's going to wrap it up here from this Monday edition of Sports Speak. You can tune in at 7 p.m. every single Monday and Thursday. But overall, I've been Tim Moore saying so long as you've been watching for Sports Speak. I'm going to have a special guest perhaps yet again on Thursday, and I hope Eddie's having a lot of fun at Bruce Beck Sports Broadcasting Camp. We'll have a lot more topics to discuss as well on that Thursday edition. This one more racing and MLB baseball related, as the NFL didn't really have much news, or the NBA from last week. But the NBA we will talk about on Thursday because there is some news developing now. I just don't have all the information. But again, that'll wrap things up here from Sports Speak, and we will see you on Thursday.